Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another beautiful sunny fall day. So today, as you can see from my odometer, I'm about to hit the 21,000 kilometer mark on my 2019 MT-07. That means it's about time for a review. Now, I'll just start off by saying I know there are many reviews on this motorcycle, and this is going to be yet one more. But the target of this review is for people who are considering the MT-07 as their first motorcycle. So for new riders. I have been riding now for 2 seasons with an accumulated riding time of about 12 months. So there was a break last winter where I wasn't riding for a while. So with that amount of riding, I still consider myself a new rider, and I still have a lot to learn. But I can speak from my experience of riding this bike as a brand new rider, and what I have learned about this motorcycle and riding in general since I got it. I started riding this bike at the end of May 2020, and I had a few months that first season. When I was considering this motorcycle, I had done a lot of research. I had read a lot of reviews on this bike and other bikes, and I went and sat on a few bikes. The first ones I sat on would be a 300 or 500, the Hondas, the CBs, but I also sat on one of these, and at the time when I sat on the MT-07, I just thought it would be too big, but I had no experience. So after sitting on those other bikes and still didn't even have a license, I decided to sit on this one again, and it didn't feel so big that time. So I ended up pulling the trigger, and I bought this new in the fall of 2019. And after taking a training course on a different motorcycle, I had a bit of a feel for what a bike could be like, and so I got excited about taking this one for a ride. So the whole point of this review is going to be my thoughts of the bike, some demonstration of the kind of things that I can do with the bike. What I'm not going to do is go over all the details of the specs. There are a lot of videos and a lot of websites that outline all the specs, so I'm not going to redo those. The only thing I'll mention is the 74 horsepower and 54 pound-feet of torque. That provides a bit of context. And basically I'm asking the question, is that appropriate for a new rider? What I will talk about is my experience with this motorcycle, the different kinds of riding that I have done, the things that I enjoy about it, the things that I don't enjoy about it, and some of the other things about it when I'm actually not riding it. But before we get going, the first thing I'm going to do is stop and fill up the tank, because I might be out for a while today. So the tank is full and we're ready to go. And perhaps that's as good enough place to start as any, is to talk a little bit about the fuel and the fuel consumption. So I usually use, well, I always use the higher octane, and the main reason is because where I get fuel, there is no ethanol in it. So this has a 14-liter tank, and I have done some testing, run some numbers, and on paper I should be getting about 350 kilometers on a tank. Now, I've never taken it past 250 because I wanted to be safe. I didn't want to run out, especially when I went on a long road trip. So that's about what you can expect, at least about 250. Now that depends on how you're riding as well. When I'm riding long distance, I always ride in the eco mode, where I have it in a higher gear, and that reduces consumption. If I'm riding around town, obviously the consumption goes up. I don't get that much of a range. What about the size of the bike and the ergonomics? I am 5'8", and I have no problem flat footing on the seat. So that makes me feel pretty safe. The other thing I really like, and I did a lot of research on this, is because of the style of this motorcycle, it has a very upright riding position. The bars are up, the pegs are right below me, and I feel like my center of mass is well positioned. I feel like I have a lot of control because of that. And that also helps with riding long distance. I'm not putting a lot of weight on my arms or shoulders, and my legs are comfortable. After a long ride, the legs do get a little bit tired, but I'm learning to stretch them out a little bit, and where appropriate I even stand up, and that helps quite a bit. So I can go, well, I can go until I have to stop for gas, or until my bladder tells me to stop, and with that I'm fine. Some people have complained about how firm the seat is, and yes, it is a firm seat, but riding around town it's no problem. Riding long distance, I use padded shorts. They make a world of difference, and they cost a fraction of a comfort seat. So the point is, I find this bike very comfortable to ride. Now how about the power? Well, there's power to spare. And being a new rider, I haven't even tapped into it yet. I have tried acceleration on the highway, and it pulls really well. A lot of that mid-range torque will really get you going quickly. Once I get to an off-ramp, I'll give a bit of a demonstration of that. But the weight of the bike at just over 400 pounds keeps it very light and very nimble. It's easy to flick in and out. It's easy for corners, and as I discovered this past summer, it's great on twisty roads. In terms of the shifting, a lot of people have noted this, and I've noticed it too, is when you're starting off and you go into first, you get a very prominent clunk. Some people don't like it, I don't mind it, but I find the shifting pretty good. Now the other thing I have to qualify, I should have said this at the start, is I haven't ridden any other motorcycles, at least not for any distance, so I'm not able to really compare. But I'm trying to let you know how I feel as a new rider. So the shifting I find pretty good. I did add some shorty levers to the clutch and the brake, and I did find that that helps quite a bit. I feel like I have a lot more control when I'm using the two fingers on each lever. Let's give this van, there's nobody behind us, let's give this van a bit of time so I can show you some acceleration. What I need to, it will definitely go. And that makes it a lot of fun. on the highway, this bike handles really well. I've been out for some long distances. I've been out in some less than ideal weather. I've been out in some pretty severe winds, and it's okay. You get blown around a little bit, but using some tricks like sticking your leg out on the windward side helps, leaning helps, and just relaxing as well. It was a bit nerve-wracking the first time I did it, but it doesn't bother me so much now. So on the highway, this bike pulls really well. You get it into 6th gear, you cruise along, and it does a really good job. So pulling away in 5th gear, I have no problem. Passing large trucks or traffic is really not an issue. In fact, I find myself, when I'm driving my car, expecting the same kind of acceleration, which of course just isn't there. What I have not done is tested a top speed on this motorcycle, because I'm not really interested in it, and I just don't think it's safe. And the top speed is going to be a lot faster than I'm ever going to need. But from what I've researched, it's over 200 kilometers per hour. Brakes. People have complained about the brakes. I think they're okay. It has ABS. I've had no issues with braking. In fact, I do low speed drills in a parking lot, and one of those is emergency braking, and going 40 kilometers an hour I can stop within 2 parking spaces, so that's okay. And I know the ABS is kicking in because I can feel it, but I feel like I have full control if I do progressive braking. The suspension, again, I've heard that the suspension is a little weak on this bike, and maybe it is. There's been a couple of times going on some twisty roads where I can feel it. Maybe it doesn't feel as planted as it could be, but I do trail braking and that helps quite a bit. So would I upgrade the suspension? I don't know, maybe. I know there's the Dave Moss tuning trick that people swear by, and I might consider that next season. Depends on my riding skill and experience. But still, for me right now, I am nowhere near taking this bike to its limits. One thing I will note that some people have talked about is the throttle is a bit twitchy, especially at the lower speeds. And I've thought about, you know, maybe putting an R6 throttle tube on, but I don't know. The thing is, if it's twitchy, it gives me all the more reason to think carefully about my throttle control. Another thing I like about this motorcycle is the ability to do your own maintenance. I like to be a bit of a do-it-yourself kind of person, and I liked working on this bike. Because of it being a naked bike, a lot of things are easy to get to. And when I first bought it, I had them put a center stand on. And that has been great because I can lift the back wheel up and get to the chain so easily to clean it very quickly. And that's great on long trips as well. So cleaning the chain, very easy. Changing the oil, very easy. I've done a little bit more. I've gone in and changed the spark plugs. And I had to remove the gas tank and obviously all the plastics around it. And the caps on the plugs were a little hard to get off because of the tight space they're in. But I was able to do it and get them changed, and everything was fine. And while I was in there, I changed the air filter as well. But I really enjoyed that. I enjoy working on things. And so that's another positive. If you are mechanically inclined, this bike is fun to work on. And it will save you money, because the dealers, as we all know, are incredibly expensive. I think mine here charges about $135 an hour, which is ridiculous. So I had to invest in some tools. I had some already. So if you don't have tools, there are some basic things. that you can get, and you can do quite a bit with those. The next thing I want to do, probably in the next season, is it's going to be about that time, I want to adjust the throttle bodies. And I think I should be able to do it fairly easily. But that's another plus of this bike. Another question one might ask is, can you take this on a long trip? I will do a longer video on my modifications and the touring that I did, but the shorter answer is yes. It's not exactly built for long touring, but I'm a firm believer in the saying that the best touring motorcycle is the one you have in your garage, and this is the one I have in my garage, and I make it work, and I had a blast. So even long days I had one day I was on the road for 11 hours. I wasn't riding for 11 hours, but there was a lot of time in the saddle. And one thing I do, because I have a stock seat, which is notorious for being uncomfortable, is I bought a pair of padded shorts that I wear under my riding jeans, and they make a world of difference. In those long days, my butt didn't get sore. It was mostly my hamstring from being cramped up in the riding position. But I've also learned to stretch my leg a little bit, shift my position around, and even stand up where I can, and that helped quite a bit. So would I take it on a long trip again? Absolutely, and I plan to do it next summer. The other thing I really like about this bike is the cost. I bought it brand new. It was about $7,500. There was some extras like all the costs of the dealer, and I had them put a couple of extra things on. But the bang for the buck on this bike is very hard to beat. You get a lot of performance for a very reasonable price. And that's something that's really attractive. So could I recommend this motorcycle for a new rider? Absolutely, with the understanding that you have a mature attitude and good throttle control, because this bike could get away from you. But if you have that, you'll have a blast. And it's easy to learn on, and it's easy to grow into. I suspect I can ride this bike for many years to come and still discover more and more about what it can do. Would I recommend this motorcycle for a long trip? Yes, I would. Will I do it again? Yes, I would. Would I buy this motorcycle again? Yes, I would. So I hope this review has been helpful. It's more of a opinion, my opinion on it. And my opinion is I love it. I do want to get more experience on other motorcycles at some point, but I know I will always enjoy this one. It makes me smile every time I'm on it. And a lot of people say it's just really fun, really fun. But it's absolutely true. It is a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoyed this. Safe riding, and take care.